Hey everybody, Evan Nathaniel Grimm, a very special forecast today. We're talking about the Scorpio Lunar Eclipse. It's happening on May 5th at 10:34 a.m. Pacific time. This one I'm calling the final purge. It's a very important full moon and one of the most important of the entire year because you are letting go of things that have been building for 6 months, but even over a year. So I'm going to explain the general themes and then also the impact on each and every zodiac sign. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go with the chart here. We're going to take a look at every sort of major aspect. And again, I'm going to translate it for you and sort of go through what you should be taking away from it. So first of all, track where 14 to 15 degrees of Scorpio is in your chart. So that's the domain of life where this full moon is happening, which, full moons are illuminations, culminations, and with eclipses, they are not that predictable, but we do know that fate oftentimes drives it. It's a little bit out of our control, but they do set us on a new course. And so eclipses are always very pivotal resets, and they do typically set the tone for the next 6 months. But oftentimes with a lunar eclipse, it's more so an ending and a closing of a chapter that's been going on for at least 6 months. And in this case, almost a year and a half as well. So there's sort of two chapters that you're closing simultaneously. And so just think about it like static on a television. You're switching, all of a sudden it's switching the channel, it's switching to a different sport, or it's switching to a different topic. And you realize that it's the switch you actually needed. So let's talk about the sort of signs that are involved really quick. So anytime we talk about Scorpio, we have to mention Taurus on the opposite side of the axis. So Scorpio is a water sign and it's very deep, it's very intuitive, it's oftentimes psychic, but it really deals with all things taboo, all things that we don't talk about, either at the dinner table or within ourselves. There's things that we just don't venture into. But Scorpio also rules shared possessions, power, control, fears, shadows, secrets, and revelations. Now, Taurus rules personal possessions, natural resources, values, natural talents, and self-worth. So Taurus is a very grounded sign, grounded in what it values. Scorpio, as a water sign, is a little bit more intent on building power, building sort of control over time, but also merging with others. So there's this need to really to almost like feed on other people's energy, right? Like Scorpio almost feels like there's a lack of something. So Scorpio fundamentally operates from a lack, and Taurus operates from a contentment with what it has. Now, that doesn't make Scorpio or Taurus no sign is better than the other. But as someone who has Scorpio, a Scorpio sun, moon, Venus, and Pluto, like I feel, pretty qualified to talk about Scorpio. And so I'm going to dig into that in a second. But there's definitely a lot of muck that we're digging up right now. And fixed signs are really about persistence, will, loyalty, and they don't easily budge. They don't easily shift their position. So sometimes a lunar eclipse in a fixed sign especially can be very difficult because it's like we don't want to let something go. And Scorpio definitely fixates on the things that it feels it needs to possess in order to feel secure. So both Taurus and Scorpio want security. But with this eclipse, it's almost like the security you've been chasing, the means to that security may be sort of false. Like it may not actually be the right way to gain security. So this is going to be very much a lunar eclipse about how do you find security without those things that you have been obsessing over, fixating on, or really obsessed with. So let's talk about also the fact, though, that we just had the solar eclipse in Aries. Aries is about a relationship with the self, and its opposite sign, Libra, is about a relationship with others. So part of this eclipse will incorporate those themes of how do I fit into a relationship or not. So again, the Aries new and full moon, the Aries new moon, this was really, that solar eclipse was our ability to, really step into our own independence, but also accept that we need relationships in order to, evolve. I do think a lot of people went through, though, a shift in values, and maybe decided to leave behind certain relationships, although other people actually maybe placed a greater trust in certain relationships. or other people put the trust in themselves, right? So it's kind of like a diverging path for a lot of people. So think back to that solar eclipse in Aries a couple weeks ago. You probably started to be more decisive about this is where you stand on something, or this is how you want this relationship to look. And you became a little bit more assertive, actually, in demanding certain things and saying, like, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be, obviously, like, I deserve my needs to be met in a relationship. So I think a lot of people felt that solar eclipse is like a moment of empowerment and courage to just say the thing that you need to say. But now the Scorpio lunar eclipse, believe it or not, even if you feel like you've said everything, it's showcasing how something buried deeper, even deeper within us, is halting our ability to grow still. So there's still some things that we have not excavated. So this full moon also marks not one, but two separations or conclusions. Now, it could be the end of a theme that arose in January 2022 when the South Node entered Scorpio, and or something that started October, November last year. So probably around October or November last year, you felt like, especially around, I think it was October 25th was the actual solar eclipse. However, something may have changed within that entire cycle. So from October 25th all the way until, mid-November, you may have like committed to something, and you may have changed your opinion on something. You may have changed your opinion about something that, is very formative and monumental in your life. So you may have decided to embark on a completely new journey last fall during the solar eclipse. And now maybe you are realizing that either that was tenable or untenable, or in order for that new journey to be tenable, you have to let something go. And I apologize, I had to pause my recording really quick. Which is perfectly synchronistic with what I'm talking about. So to bring this back to the screen here, really, I think that, again, this is very much the ending of some type of 6-month or even year-and-a-half journey. And I think the South Node in Scorpio, it's really forced all of us to confront aspects of ourselves that we are uncomfortable with. So I would think about how do our obsessions or toxic habits impede our progress? But also, is there some type of psychological scarring that we still have to heal from? So it's like, if I want that relationship to go further, if I want that job to go further, if I want to improve my financial well-being, it's like, what sort of toxic, addiction, obsession, or habit is really getting in the way of that? So like maybe I want to build more financial health, but I can't help but just go shopping for new clothes. Or maybe I want that relationship to work, but I keep projecting my fears that are illegitimate at this point. I keep projecting them onto my partner. So it's almost like, have you been chewing your own tail, so to speak, and allowing others to either steer things for you, or how has that sort of chewing your own tail really fogged up your perception of like how to evaluate a situation? Like maybe you're not even evaluating something in your life fairly because you're coming at it from this sort of stance of like projection. So with the North Node, keep in mind the North Node is in Taurus. So how can I reinforce my sense of self-worth with the North Node in Taurus to feel at ease, as if my inner richness, I have this inner richness that does not demand attachments to other people or other people's energy. And this is where I want to talk about Scorpio a little bit more deeply. Scorpio, especially those with a lot of placements in Scorpios often go on some type of vengeance tour at some point in their lives because they feel like they're owed something. And so it's like, when I think about a Scorpio moon, so I have a Scorpio moon, and when I was growing up, I remember feeling as if there was something that I didn't have that other people had. I went to a suburban high school, but I was from the city, and I always thought, like, why do like people from my high school have a pool in their backyard, or why do people in my high school have these resources that I don't have? And so that definitely brought up insecurities and feelings of jealousy. And so as opposed to like a Taurus energy, a lot of Taurus moons will feel like maybe they have enough. A lot of times Scorpio moons will feel like they lack something, whether that's actual resources growing up, or they feel like they maybe just don't feel secure and that they need something outside of themselves. So Scorpio actually does pertain to possession. So possession of other people's resources, other people's energy, other people's time, et cetera, et cetera. I've done videos about that on TikTok. But the point here is that with the lunar eclipse in Scorpio, we all feel like there's a spotlight on some aspect of ourselves that almost we feel a little bit of ashamed of, right? Like, why do I feel that? Why do I feel like I need to control a situation? Why do I feel like I need more of that? And all of these things are coming from outside of yourself. So the lunar eclipse in Scorpio is really about purging that, releasing that, letting that go. So you have the inner peace, which as a Scorpio moon, it's almost like you're transforming and rising above that. So it's like you have that inner peace, that inner sort of detachment from things. But as a Scorpio moon, you're keenly aware of those shadows. You're keenly aware of those sort of animalistic almost urges or tendencies. But it's like you understand yourself on a deeper level at that point. So it's almost like you've lost that ignorance, right? You've lost that innocence. But you're grateful that you understand that, because as a Scorpio moon, once you break through that wall and you kind of rewire those neural pathways, you can go even further, because that self-awareness can take you really far. Because with that self-awareness, you're not going to let other people get the upper hand on you, but you're also going to be able to sort of transmute and catalyze that transformation and take a relationship to the next level. Because it's like, oh, when any of your triggers or fears are coming up. And so I would say, I would ask yourself these key questions too. So I wrote out a list of key questions to ask yourself. Now, number one, how have anxieties and insecurities from my distant past been hiding in plain sight? Do I have compulsions or fixations that reflect a difficult time I'm still processing? Do I have fears based on outmoded habits or neural pathways that I need to consciously rewire? And how can I let go of attachments to external things that and see that my happiness needs to start within? And I think the outmoded habits is the biggest piece. So with Scorpio, it's a lot of times about, there's these things that sit within the subconscious that we no longer have control of, that actually completely have control of us, but they're hiding in plain sight. So think about the things that you do every day, the habits you have, or the way you navigate certain like career things or relationships that are based on like really, really early childhood conditioning. So, really rethinking that of, okay, do I really need to feel that way anymore? Is that person even in my life at this point? So like really being honest with yourself about like, okay, can I maybe give myself permission to be happy, even though I was raised in an environment where I didn't get that permission? Like ask yourself really honest questions like that. And then you can break through that wall, like I said, and take that job further, take that relationship further, etc. Now, the ruler is Mars and Pluto. Mars is squaring Chiron still. So that does feel like you're going to have to, your identity and sense of self-worth is being tested yet again, which was also the case on the solar eclipse. In a global sense, I think geopolitics, this could ignite some turf wars again. But also Pluto rules this eclipse, and it just stationed retrograde, giving it this kind of enhanced power. So Pluto is veering back to Capricorn, and this is going to underscore yet again the too big to fail theme within banks. But it's also giving us on a personal level pause to reconsider where we still have to transform. And on a global scale, again, we're going to think about on this lunar eclipse, what remains unsolved from the Pluto and Capricorn era? What still needs to be dug up or excavated? So there could be some revelations within the financial industry. And we just saw with First Republic Bank, of course, needing to get bailed out and saved. This definitely will be a theme this week. And then finally, Venus is squaring Neptune. So there is a lot of indecision in relationships. We're not really sure where we stand. So it's important to have multiple conversations within relationships. So have the conversation a couple times, because you're not going to be able to expect people to get it and understand what you're saying the first time. So now I'm going to talk about the impact briefly of each sign. And in order to do this, I'm actually going to talk about the signs as pairs, because they're going to go through similar themes simultaneously, because they're on the same axis. And if you want like really even more of a deep dive on all the signs, I do have my video about May 2023. So definitely check that out. But anyways, for Aries and Libra, Aries and Libra are actually both experiencing this, at least in a whole sign system, as sort of a letting go of a certain financial situation. So for Aries, it's mostly in their 8th house, depending on the house system you use. But for a lot of Aries, it's in your 8th house. So you're kind of like letting go of something, maybe of a financial, shared financial kind of situation with a partner. You may be disentangling yourself from someone financially, but it also is about intimacy, the eighth house. So maybe you're leaving behind, letting go of maybe maybe even a toxic habit related to that, where you feel like you need those sort of really intense experiences with people to experience security. Maybe you're actually detaching from that, because I think a lot of Aries are soul searching right now. So letting go of some of those more addictive behaviors in your financial life or with intimacy. And that's going to actually open up some doors for you with Jupiter going into Taurus pretty soon. So for Libra, it's in your second house mostly. So Libras are actually also thinking about, do I have any toxic obsessions with money? And how do I rethink my financial life? How do I build that stability? How do I, again, let go of my financial life needing to be a certain way? And also with the Taurus energy in your eighth house, you may be looking for alternative sources of revenue, and that could open up when Jupiter goes into Taurus. But there's some kind of letting go. You have to let go of some kind of value that's been eating away at your financial life. Now, Taurus and Scorpio next. Taurus and Scorpio with this eclipse are definitely dealing with the self versus your relationships. So how do you fit into your relationships or not? So for Tauruses, it's definitely a little bit more focused on letting go, maybe of a partnership, a relationship, or just taking it to the next level by, again, surrendering this, giving up this old sort of fear that was like preventing closeness. So for Taurus, it's like you do want to evaluate how how your subconscious, again, what is hiding in plain sight and blocking growth in a relationship. And Scorpios to some extent will experience that too. Scorpios are having this is most directly affecting Scorpios. And Scorpios are having to walk away from some type of repressed aspect of themselves, but they have to face it first. So once they face that repressed aspect, then I think that they have to be really honest with it. I think Scorpios have to be really vulnerable in this lunar eclipse. And with that vulnerability of admitting, okay, maybe I'm not over this thing yet, or I'm still jealous, or I'm still possessive, or I'm still controlling, or I still feel like a grudge about something from like high school, and it's like, maybe I have to be less competitive. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to, kind of dunk on somebody that I was really like enemies with in high school or college. Like sometimes Scorpio can have these really, again, deep-seated senses of like again, operating from a lack. So Scorpios need to stop operating from a lack, a mindset of like scarcity, or like, I'm owed this thing. They have to release that sense of like jealousy or vengeance. So Gemini and Sag, this is a little bit more about your habits and your health. So for Geminis, you're actually letting go of maybe a toxic lifestyle, or maybe some type of like day-to-day routine that's been undermining your health. And you're also in that 12th house. You are thinking a little bit more about like mental health and well-being. And if you purge that sort of toxic day-to-day habit, I do think you're opening yourself to like other sort of perspectives in the 12th house that are going to be very spiritual. So Geminis are going to be going through the spiritual expansion over the next year. But in order to do that, I think they need to let go of some, maybe even some friendships, honestly, that are some degenerates in their lives. I think some Geminis are surrounded by degenerates and pathological liars, and they need to kind of like let go maybe some of those relationships in order to get back to the basics. Like, what am I doing every day? Like, what am I like, what is my nutrition even? How am I nourishing myself? But also some Geminis may be letting go of some like work projects, or completing a work project, or, there may be a reset with some coworkers. Now, Sag is going to be experiencing this a little bit more as like their nightlife habits, like kind of cleaning that up a little bit. I think some Sages have been, overindulging in some of the escapist tendencies in the 12th house. So Sages really need to like get back to basics as well, and think about, okay, how do I get my sleep back under control? How do I, is there anything I'm dwelling on or trying to escape from that I have to face in order to kind of, again, get myself back together, and then allow the 6th house to give me opportunities with Jupiter coming up. So that's where Jupiter will come in and give you the resources you need with coworkers or at work, with technology, maybe incorporating that differently at work. So your work life is going to get better. And I think your health is going to get better, but only if you surrender that lifestyle. I think you have to give up some of those nightlife habits, but also address any mental health. So next we have Cancer and Cap. Cancers, you have this in the 5th house. So Cancers are definitely maybe resetting something in their creative life or maybe accomplishing something creatively. But a lot of Cancers, I think, are kind of maybe letting go of a certain creative project, you know, or just like thinking about, okay, where have I lost touch with my creativity? Or how has my obsession with one type of creative hobby blocked my creativity elsewhere? And, you know, the 5th house can also be about like, you know, I think it's really about how you bring out your inner joy, right? So it's like, have I been blocking that? Or have I been afraid of just having fun and getting in front of a camera or getting in front of the spotlight? So I think for Cancers, like this can be a little bit of a fun time where it's like I'm releasing some of that fear and that stage fright. But other Cancers, they may have some difficulties here with their romantic life. So you may be feeling like, you know, you have to like reset the sense of romance in your relationships. So Cancers definitely have sort of a reckoning here with like, you know, how do I bring that back into my life, that romance? Now Capricorns, you're going to have this mostly in your 11th house. So maybe letting go of a certain friendship, maybe letting go of something you're making, like some kind of content you're making on social media, you know, maybe just offloading a financial responsibility in a friend group or sorry, in an organization or community. So some of you may be stepping away from a community, but some Capricorns will have Scorpio in the 10th house. So some Capricorns are letting go of a career or some type of authority figure. But for Capricorns, it's definitely about, you know, really this, what are you trying to accomplish basically in certain friend groups or organizations or communities or online? Because you may realize that what you're trying to accomplish is either feeding some kind of toxic habit. I think some Capricorns may actually want to set more boundaries around social media. I think a lot of Capricorns may have actually gone a little too far with their social media. They have a social media addiction. They may need to set boundaries. I think that that's actually probably the most likely scenario. Leos and Aquarius. Leos are going to be purging something related to the home, family, or a financial matter within their family. Some Leos are moving. Some Leos are fully renovating their homes. Some Leos may be separating from someone in their family. Some Leos may be, you know, there may be some financial matters, again, within the home or family kind of coming to a head. But I would foresee a lot of Leos moving or rethinking how they're investing in their home, you know, how they're paying their rent, etc. Now, Aquarius is, oh, sorry, one more thing. Leos, you know, as you let that go, just know that like there will be opportunities in your career coming, new opportunities once Jupiter goes into Taurus. So maybe some Leos are moving for a job, whether they know it or not. Now, Aquarius is, you're going to have this a little bit more in your 10th house. So for Aquarius is, a lot of you are wanting to walk away from a certain job or responsibility or a certain public image. So a lot of Aquariuses are quitting their jobs, leaving their jobs behind, and transitioning to a new career. And that's perfectly in keeping with the fact that Pluto is stationing retrograde in Aquarius right now. So when it's at a standstill, it gains power. So a lot of Aquariuses are just wanting to completely transform and reset themselves, and that requires them to walk away probably from a certain career. And finally, Virgo and Pisces, this is really your 9th house, 3rd house axis. So for Virgos, South Node on the 3rd, you may be having a really difficult conversation with somebody about how you need to walk away. Maybe you have some toxic friends in your life right now and you need to separate from them. So I think there's some of you having these conversations around closure. Others, there may be something related to siblings here or neighbors or even learning. So some Virgos may be letting go of a certain learning journey, you know, or just resetting that. And again, Jupiter's going into your 9th house soon. So I think a lot of you are going to want to get away from your local environment and just think bigger, go traveling, go adventuring. But in terms of relationships, a lot of Virgos are focused on more serious relationships now. So again, I think you're cutting the cord with certain people in your life and you're having that conversation. And Pisces, this is more in your 9th house. So a lot of Pisces are rethinking maybe an investment in a trip or travel adventure. Maybe they're rethinking something that they've invested in with education. But a lot of Pisces may be seeking to learn more about something new. They may seek to take a step back from one of their learning journeys that they're on, or a travel adventure. But I do think that a lot of Pisces are starting to understand a little bit more about my worldview, right? How is it changing? And with Scorpio in the 9th, it's like some Pisces may realize, oh, I don't have to have such a fear-based mindset, or I don't have to believe that the world is defined by suffering. I can really reset that. And then with Jupiter going into your 3rd house, there may be publishing opportunities coming for you, or new learning journeys, or you may be able to actually successfully market or sell or advertise some things soon. But that requires you to rethink like what it is that you're trying to master. What topic in the 9th house are you trying to master and be almost an educator in, and a source of light for others. So that concludes it. Just to summarize here, the eclipse, we are all having to let go of something. We're all having to let go of something. But if we let that go and we do the hard work now, we do the difficult work of purging, Jupiter is coming into Taurus in a matter about a week later to grant us new opportunities by clearing. So we're clearing space for those opportunities. So no matter how difficult the next week is for you, just reframe it as what doors am I opening? What opportunities am I opening with Jupiter? And how is cutting that cord going to basically allow me to travel further? Because maybe that cord has been tying me down. So we all have a cord connected to a person or a habit or an obsession we need to leave behind. So leave that behind and good things will happen for you. So thank you so much. I'm Evan Nathaniel Grimm. Subscribe to my YouTube, and also I would urge you to get a reading from me. And also I'm teaching astrology courses. I'm teaching one in a couple of weeks. And then finally, I'm hosting a retreat in Croatia in September. So I would definitely recommend that you join me for that. There's still a couple spots left. So thank you and enjoy the eclipse.